If I mention British anti-fascism in the 1930s, the Battle of Cable Street or the British Battalion of the International Brigades probably comes to mind. But a pivotal moment has been forgotten by history. The Battle of Holbeck Moor. It took place just a week before Cable Street and showed the world that fascism shall not pass in the north. The Daily Worker said London must follow Leeds' example, and they certainly did. I want to shed some light on this crucial day and share the role of Yorkshire's communists in the struggle for socialism and anti-fascism in Britain. I'm going to read an account by a local Leeds author. He's called Chris Nixon, if you do want to check out any of his work. But first, just a little bit of context of why the fascists first came to Leeds. Sir Oswald Mosley, leader of the British Union of Fascists, had lost his support from the Daily Mail in 1934 after it previously ran the headline, "Hurrah for the Blackshirts." The violence that tainted communities after his rallies was just too much for a so-called respectable paper to bear. He therefore wanted to build a popular support base and saw the north of England as a key target. The Great Depression had ravaged the north, unemployment was rife, and ordinary people were looking for a political alternative. He moved his headquarters to the mostly Jewish area of Salford and aimed to stoke up anti-Semitism for his own cause. But he also had his eyes set firmly on Yorkshire, specifically Leeds. There'd been anti-Semitic riots there in 1917, and now thousands of Jews lived in slums on the outskirts of the city in the Leyland area. He wanted to capitalise on this and organised a march through the Leylands to establish a fascist base in Yorkshire. But there was something he underestimated: the strength of local communist, Labour and trade union branches that would not let this hatred go without a fight. And that's where the story of a young communist, Roy, begins. We had the word well ahead of time. It were in the newspapers, gossip all through the pubs. On the walk to work in the morning, men would be talking about it. The Blackshirts are coming. Bloody well let 'em come, I said, and we'll show 'em what Leeds is about. I knew why Mosley wanted his fascist scum here. Jews. We had plenty of 'em, and good people they are too. Doing nobody any harm, and they work hard, the way a man should. The Watch Committee spent the week hemming and hawing. Mosley and his gang wanted to have their march right by the Leylands. That'll be a recipe for disaster. Bad enough as it was, with swastikas and slogans painted on the windows of Jewish shops during the night. The fascists said it wasn't them that done it, but we all knew the truth. Too scared to show their faces and try it in the day. Not like that had happened since the riots back in 17. Now me, I were a communist then. I hated fascism with a bloody passion. I knew what would come with Hitler. Anyone with half a brain did, and I didn't want it in my country. Definitely not my bloody city. Finally, them as supposed to lead us told Mosley and his lot that they couldn't go near the Leylands. Not that they couldn't march, mind you. They could still do that, just not there. Once that order was out, we started making our plans. They're planning a big rally on Holbeck Moor. 1,000 or more of them, probably some supporters too. We knew what we had to do. We were going to make the bastards wish they never heard of Leeds. Didn't take too much to put the word out, actually. A nod here, a little natter in the pub in the evening, and we knew we would have a crowd. At first we thought we'd line the route out from town, but that was only going to be a waste of time. Better to meet them up on Holbeck Moor where they were going to have their rally. Of course, the party officials talked to people from the Labour Party. The way I heard it is that Labour bods spent most of the meeting sucking on their pipes and making sympathetic noises before finally saying they wouldn't take part in the protests. Soft as bloody butter, the lot of them. Not that it would stop plenty of folk as voted that way. They'll be out there. You give in to fascists once, and next time they want a mile more. The weather was good that morning. Sunny, warm, not much of a hint of a breeze. The 27th of September, 1936. We were all in a good mood as we traipsed up the moor. It was going to be a good laugh, and if a few heads got broken, well, it was not much as they deserved, were it? Half a dozen of us went from our street hour with Stan. He were a pipe fitter, a strong lad. We'd been mates since we were boys, went to school together, primary and on. He bought it during the war, out in Burma. All his wife got were a medal. I dare say his body's out there still somewhere in that jungle. The closer we got to the moor, the more noise we could hear. I'd expected plenty of people, but not like that. Thousands upon thousands and not enough coppers in view to keep order, which was exactly what we'd hoped. Stan gave me a big grin and opened his hand to show some knuckle dusters. You'd better watch out, I warned him. The Rozzers catch you with those and you'll be up for having an offensive weapon. Nay, he laughed. Come on, Roy, I'm not bloody daft. Any chance of that and I'll drop him. He were a big lad, top 6 foot, shoulders on him like a bloody barn. He didn't need out. Just his fist would do enough damage, but he had his eye up, same as the rest of us. There were runners out, bringing messages on the march. They're on Calverley Street, went around. Then they've crossed over the river. It was going to be a battle. We were all in a good mood. Laughing, joking, some singing and chanting. I like being at the football in some ways, but not others. Plenty of the lads had organised well. They must have spent every evening scouring the moor because they had a big arsenal of stones for us to throw. Stuff him in your jackets, lads, one man cried. He had a battered bowler hat on his head and a muffler wrapped round his throat. Never mind that it were a beautiful day. Once they arrive, you know what to do. There was a mood of anticipation, a celebration. We were going to enjoy ourselves and chase the bastards out of here. The Blackshirts had some supporters already up on the moor, a couple of thousand, but we easily outnumbered them 10-1. They didn't look too happy, but they didn't dare back down. Not now. Not before their precious leader even showed his face. But you could see it. They were scared. They knew they were going to get a pasting. Some of them were hard lads, and that was alright. We had ammunition. When someone's chucking rocks at you, there's not much you can do but duck and hope for the best. And I reckoned that among the stones the boys must have taken up half the cobbles in Holbeck. Oh yeah, we're going to make the buggers hurt. They're coming, the words ran around the crowd. We're all craning our necks to see. Then I spotted them, like a thin river of black moving slowly. The noise grew as they grew closer. A few cheering, but many more of us yelling out insults. They'd built a podium, a stage of sorts, for him and a few of his cohorts. We waited until Mosley took his place, his little army laid out in front of him, gathered loyally. As soon as he moved forward to open his mouth, we struck up the red flag, a huge chorus of voices to drown him out. It wasn't planned, felt natural, but we sang as long and loud as Welshmen. As soon as it died down, the stones started. They arced over our heads and we watched them come down. One of them hit Mosley and made him move back. That brought cheers and a few more rocks. Some came back at us, it were bound to happen. A few of our lads were bleeding, but it were never an equal fight. It were a Sunday, and this were our church. The coppers couldn't do much, they tried to keep some order, but they wanted to have their heads down too, and to be honest I can't blame them. I'd lost sight of Stan and the crowds he'd wedded forward as soon as he could, yelling and screaming, his blood up. God only knew what he would end up doing. There were missiles flying backwards and forwards, people crying out. Whenever Mosley tried to speak, the red flag began again to drown out his words. It was a good way to feel strong. Communists, Jews, good people from all over Leeds gathering to tell the Blackshirts what we thought of fascism here. We didn't want out to do with it. A stone hit me on the shoulders hard enough, but no damage done. I picked it up and tossed it back, and when I looked around I could see everyone had the fire in their eyes. We were here to do a job, and we weren't going to leave until it were finished. Another stone hit Mosley in the face and he fell. Good luck or good aim, I don't know, but we cheered. It gave us heart, and we began to push forward. Get 'em on the run, lads, someone shouted, and we all laughed. I've no idea how long it lasted, it just seemed like moments, but it must have been a lot longer. I was too young to have fought in the war, but it must have felt like that. Time seemed to speed up and slow down at the same time. It was like electricity were going through me. I could have shocked anyone I touched. A couple of times I caught the toff's voice, but as soon as anyone heard it we began singing. Sir Oswald, that were his title. Should have been hung for treason. We weren't about to give him much of a chance. Rubbish like his don't deserve an airing. Finally he gave up. This was a battle he didn't have any chance of winning, and he knew it. He limed up them as supported him, and they began to march away as if they'd won somewhat, but they got out. We jeered and shouted until we were hoarse, and they couldn't hear us any more. We'd bloody won. Men were laughing their heads off, full of victory. We'd send them off with their tails between their legs. Someone passed a hip flask round, we all had a nip. It burned on the way down, but by God it felt good. We were in the papers the next day. Well, a few of them, the local ones, which said there'd been about 30,000 on the moor. I don't know if that was true. When you're part of it, you can never tell. Certainly the biggest crowd I've ever seen. Biggest I'll ever be a part of, I'm sure of that. Most of the big dailies didn't bother to cover it. After all, we're the North. We don't matter. Funny though, they were quick to write up what happened down in London a week later. The Battle of Cable Street, they called it, when all those Cockneys and Jews down there told the fascists what they thought of them. Up here, the magistrates bleated in the press about public order and how terrible it had all been. Stood up on their hind legs and said their piece. But there were only 3 people arrested. It wasn't as if there was any shortage of candidates to be nicked. 3. It was just a token. When the 3 of them appeared in court, all they got was a slap on the wrist. Someone must have had a word. Send them down and there'll be riots. There would have been and all. You're the wisest thing they could have done. The only thing. We'd made the whole bloody city tremble. They might not have shown it, but the council was scared. The law were terrified. But by God we showed them. And good on them Londoners for what they did too. It were a lovely feeling last year we made our way back off the moor, comrades together. The Battle of Holbeck Moor, someone named it. And that ain't half bad. But it's not quite the truth. It were no battle. It were a rout. A complete bloody rout. I hope you enjoyed that story. I just think it sums up the day better than any lecture could. Sadly though, the Battle of Holbeck Moor goes without commemoration. There's no blue plaque to mark it like with Cable Street, and very few even know it actually happened. It's criminal that such a great day for the British working class has been swept aside, and I hope this helps to spread the word at least a little and encourage commemoration in the future, because it does hold vital messages for us today, namely the failure of social democracy to stand up to fascism, as seen by the Labour Party officially condemning the protest. Believing that we can just debate fascism away in the free marketplace of ideas. No. We defeat fascism by the strength of our communities and the willingness to defend them. To quote a Soviet poster, speak to fascists in the language of fire, with words of bullets and the sharp wit of bayonets. But it also teaches us a much more important lesson, that during economic crisis, much like we see now, society polarises. The centre ground is abandoned and people seek radical alternatives to the problems they face. Now this can go one of two ways: socialism or barbarism, fascism. Our past comrades, at least in Britain, won this struggle by community work, serving the people, and were guided by socialism. That is what motivated the good people of Leeds to give Mosley a bloody nose that he would never forget, and end the stain of fascism from encroaching on the north of England, at least for 50 years. But I worry for the future. The left's organisation is nothing like it was in the 30s, and now many northern towns are preyed upon by fascists. Britain First, Tommy Robinson and the National Front, all providing false answers to desperate people and urging them to turn on their neighbour and class comrades rather than their true foe, the British capitalist class. So, I urge you, please join your local Communist Party, trade union, and educate, agitate, organise. We must once again bar the road to fascism, and inspired by the memory of our past and guided by a socialist vision of the future. Comrades, we can, will, and must win. Now, I'd just like to thank my patrons. First of all, the indomitable, ever faithful, glorious comrades, the Hells der Arbeit, who obviously keep the channel going. So we have a woo and deep red wine, and of course a thanks as well to the party comrades, Berrimans, Lemon Meringue Kush, Martin Barakov, Sebastian Ryberchik, sorry, and Simon Bilodeau Colbert. So thank you for your patronage, thank you for keeping the channel going, and solidarity forever.